It was a very peaceful day at the opening ceremony of the Sinquefield Cup in St. Louis. However, the situation quickly heated up when the crowd spotted Eric Rosen, the chess master and content creator we all admire, facing none other than Magnus Carlsen, who is literally the greatest chess player to ever touch the chessboard. Although Magnus Carlsen is a man who can remember up to 10,000 games to the dot, Eric himself has several sneaky tricks up his sleeves. Who do you think will win this epic face-to-face combat? Buckle up, it's gonna be a crazy ride. Good luck to both of these geniuses, because they're gonna need it. The game began with Magnus playing the move c4, going for the English opening. Since Magnus did not play the move e4, Eric was a bit disappointed, as he really wanted to play the Stanford Gambit against Carlsen. But Rosen improvised and played pawn to e5. Then Magnus played knight to c3, followed by Black's move d4. As the game transitioned to a Queen's Gambit declined, after both players exchanged their central pawns, it quickly became the exchange variation of Queen's Gambit declined. Eric played a very general move of pawn to f5, planning to put his light square bishop in the center. But Magnus was a pro in this position, so he opted for queen to c2 just to spice up some things. After taking a moment to think, Eric played bishop d6, and the game continued as both players made some basic developments. Black played rook e8, placing it on the open file, and Magnus responded with knight f3. Black played bishop e6 with a plan to move his knight to d2 to solidify the center. Magnus castled and played a3, with a counter plan of pushing pawn to b4 and then b5 against Eric's pawn structure. Rosen tried to slow this down and played a5, then put his queen to b8, lasering down White's h-pawn. Magnus, keeping the tension, played bishop g3. Eric played b5, which not only set up an attack but also weakened his c-pawn. Magnus immediately noticed the weakness and moved his knight to attack the weak pawn with his queen. After some basic maneuvering, Magnus started to attack with knight f4 and then knight e6, taking the bishop. Rosen took back with the queen, allowing bishop f5, threatening the queen. Eric moved his queen away and Magnus played knight to e5, putting his knight to a very powerful area on the board. Eric was feeling the heat as he was pinned in various ways, and Magnus was in full aggressive mode. He thought for a counterplay and played a calm rook to a7. Magnus seemed impressed, and after some calculations, he went for queen c3. After Black doubled up the rooks, a queen trade happened. Eric went for a juicy positional move and captured the centralized knight, completely hanging his rook. Average people like you and me would think, what in the world is Eric doing? Well, let me tell you folks, chess is a game of position, not material value. Here, Magnus cleverly took back the knight without taking the rook. As we can understand, if Eric Rosen can find a great move, Magnus Carlsen can do it too. After solidifying some basic structure for White and slightly improving the king's position for Black, Eric Rosen made a move that may haunt him for the rest of his life. He played f6. Can you guess why this is a huge mistake? Alright, let me explain it to you. Watch closely. After White gives a check with a pawn by capturing at f6, Black's plan was to go to d6. However, there was a wicked move of pawn to e4. If Eric takes the pawn, then there is this beautiful move rook to d1, and that's a checkmate in the middle of the board while Eric's pieces were hiding behind his king. Depressed Rosen had to forcefully take back the f6 pawn with his king. Here, Magnus completely obliterated the queen side of the board, going up a pawn and forcing a rook trade. After a couple of moves, Eric Rosen was left with some severe pawn weaknesses and a very passive rook on top of that. When it was looking all bad for Rosen, he had an interesting idea lurking around the corner of his head. He tried to set up a stalemate trap by sacrificing a pawn by playing g5. The idea was to get rid of most pawns and somehow secure a draw. The plan looks like this. After d4, if Magnus went to attack Eric's b-pawn, he would defend with the rook. Then he would play g4 check, and after a pawn exchange, Black would play rook to d3. Now, if White is greedy and takes the rook, it would be a really funny stalemate. This idea would work on average chess players, but the man with the white pieces was Magnus Carlsen. So all Eric's dreams of stalemating were out the window as Magnus played rook h5. Then, after some basic trading, Magnus prepared to run his pawns down to make some queens. Eric also tried to attack those pawns with his rook and also set up some squares to run his lone pawn to the end of the board to get a promotion. Here, Magnus pushed his pawn, completely ignoring the threat. All hope was lost that moment when Eric saw there was no way he could defend Magnus to win the game, so he resigned in this position. By the time the game was finished, Magnus was signing autographs and taking pictures with the fans. So that was a great ending to this intense game. Although Eric lost, it was one of the great experiences of his journey. Hey there! Are you tired of losing to your friends and family in chess? Well, subscribe to my channel, and you'll be checkmating your opponents like a pro. And who knows, maybe you'll even be able to play head-to-head with Magnus Carlsen someday. Dream big, so what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, and let's get checkmating.